Hey everybody, it's already August and it's been over a month since I did anything with the Ford 5000, and I know some of you are probably itching to see another video on it. So I've got some video already shot from earlier this summer. I think where we left off was I had not completely put the dashboard assembly back together because I wanted to try and repair the instrument cluster tachometer assembly, and ended up deciding that that was complete junk. And so then I found out that they make an aftermarket one, and what ended up happening there was, turns out all of the aftermarket ones that I found, they all come out of India. So there's a manufacturer over in India that's basically making all of these. And the interesting thing is there are a few different variations on them, but in particular the color of mine, I believe, is a white trim on it, and all of the ones online I found, I think, were black, or I don't remember even. All I know is I ended up deciding to order one from a tractor parts supplier in Europe. I don't even remember what country exactly. And the reason why I ordered it from that European supplier was I wanted the correct color for this tractor. I think the other one, direct from India, found them on eBay and Amazon, probably would have worked perfectly fine, but it wasn't that much more money to get the correct one color wise, and the only other issue was I had a longer wait because it was basically coming from a supplier in Europe, and it was a supplier I had never dealt with before, so I didn't know, but they seem like a legitimate tractor supply house, as opposed to just like an internet presence that is just buying the cheap thing from here and having it direct drop shipped to me. So we're going to open up the box. Came in over a month ago. I probably should have opened it up right when it came in and make sure everything was okay, but I just got too busy, and so we're going to open the box for the first time. Well, right now, not really live, but you know what I mean. I'm going to be seeing it for the first time, same as you. So I know some of you guys are probably curious, how much more did it cost for me to get this one? Well, this came from Agriline Products Limited. This came from the United Kingdom. Just kind of interesting because the tractor is made in was made in England. It actually came from Agriline Products on Hanbury Road, Stoke Prior, United Kingdom. That's a mouthful. I remember when I ordered it online, all of the prices were in pounds, British sterling. So I ended up getting an invoice from them telling me that my grand total was 136.79 pounds, British sterling. That includes the instrument cluster, a tachometer gasket, which was 6 pounds, and a decal for the gear change pattern, because mine's worn. So this is the one that you find online all over the place. It's on eBay. Numerous sellers are selling this for $98 with free shipping. So that's pretty darn cheap for a complete instrument cluster. The one that I just bought cost me, with the gasket, the decal wasn't much money, so it's around $136 British sterling, which converts to about $164 US. That included the shipping charges, which were pretty high because, again, came from Great Britain. This one, notice the first thing that is different is they have 4 lights going along the bottom. The original on my tractor, we have 4 lights, but there's 2 lights on the bottom and 2 lights on the top. And then the other big difference is this is white as opposed to black. So let's see if I lucked out and I got what I paid for. That's some interesting recycling of packing material they did there. That's going to make a mess. Get this out without spilling anything. Hey, all right.
my other stuff.
So there's the gasket, and this must be the decal. What are you doing?
Making sure there's nothing else.
There was only 3 items on the shipping.
It's a lot heavier.
Oh, that's nice. That's preformed foam deal here to keep it protected. Oh yeah, nice. So it's the right color. It's not even really white. It's almost like a gray. And it has just the 2 lights down below. Yeah, so the locations for the lights are there. And you know, it's interesting. Look, they actually have the locations for all 4 lights going across the bottom here. But what they're doing is they're essentially using the same casting and whole back assembly, and then just changing the front to match the this tractor. And then the other thing you have to be wary of is, I think some of these have a, see, this is a counterclockwise rotation on the tachometer. So it's at 0 over here, and it actually turns backwards as the RPMs go up. So you got to make sure that that's correct. So here's my original, and sure enough, it is correct. 0 over here, and it counterclockwise rotation. All right. Oh, that's interesting. The odometer, or the hour meter, is in a different location. See, here's the slot right here to read the hour meter. It's up there. So that is different. This must have went in like this. Alright, so that's the only difference I'm seeing right now. And I got the 2 gauges. Temperature gauge on the right, and that must be the fuel gauge on the left. Alright. I really wish I could get a new one of these boots, but this part is discontinued. The original part number, I don't remember what it is, but I remember looking it up and found out that this part's discontinued, and there doesn't appear to be any aftermarket option for this rubber boot available. So if anybody knows of where you can get one of these, a replacement one of these, please share that with me in the comments, because I'm sure I'm not the only person who wishes that they could replace this. It gets all dry rotted and rotted out. I was thinking of maybe trying to fabricate something just from a sheet of heavy rubber. You know, just maybe making a panel that would go over this and just put a slice in it, and it would be better than what's left here. The way this is actually made, it's kind of interesting. It looks like there are studs that come through the backside, and they have nuts on them that hold this in. So these studs must be screws that are probably molded into the rubber here. So I would probably end up just putting some screws through with washers to hold on a, you know, like I said, a sheet of rubber. I'm not going to do that right now, nor am I going to go through the trouble of sanding this and repainting it now and putting the new decal on. This is the, you can see the decal's kind of faded, so that's why I got a new one of these. This decal and the pull to tilt decal and the warning decal here, I could not find these online, so I'm probably just going to end up leaving them off altogether. It is what it is. Now I got to figure out what's what here. Oh, so I had mentioned about that there were 4 lights, and the 2 lights that go on the top here, they don't seem to correspond to anything in the front. Well, that's because these 2 lights that go on the top here are just the dash panel lights. These are the lights that light up the tachometer when it's starting to get dark out and you turn the headlights on. So these lights will come on when you turn on the light switch, and that's why they do not have like a dedicated lens that they light up, as opposed to the 2 warning lights on the bottom here. I've got 4 bulbs here. So how do you determine which ones are which? Well, it's actually pretty easy, because 2 of the lights have 2 wires going to each light. and 2 of the lights have only 1 wire going to the light. Well, how do they work if you only got 1 wire going to them? The way they work is that the outer part of the socket right here is actually the return path to ground. So these 2 lights right here are the dash panel lights, and they actually are grounded by being plugged into this metal case. And the metal case in kind is grounded through this lug, this terminal right here. It's actually even marked with a ground symbol right there. That thing that looks like a Christmas tree, that's because I got it upside down. That's a ground terminal. By the way, both of the wires going to these panel lights are supposed to be red with a, I think a white stripe or yellow stripe. This one's red, and yeah, there is just the remnants of a stripe on there. And this one, at first I thought it wasn't red, but then I realized it's red and it's just completely faded off by the looks of it because there's remnants of red on there. But I do know that these 2 are the panel lights. So that leaves these 2 right here. This is a generator tractor. So the wiring diagram for the generator version of this tractor tells us that the indicator light that has a white wire, even though that looks kind of yellow, and a brown wire with a yellow stripe right here is the generator warning light. So this light most likely should be on when the key is on and the tractor is not running. And then once the tractor is started and the generator starts generating electricity, this light should go out. That leaves this light, which has a white wire, and then it's supposed to have a brown wire with a yellow stripe. But it looks like that is long. Either the coloring's wrong on this or it's long gone. But by process of elimination, it's the only light I have left. So this is my oil pressure warning light. So again, this light most likely should come on when the key is on and the engine's not running. And then once the engine's started and oil pressure is built, this light should go out. Alright, I was able to verify that this solid black wire here is the ground wire. I did that by doing a resistance check between here and a good ground, which this bolt right here on the steering housing actually is good enough. So I got low resistance, very low resistance to there. So this is my ground. So when I turn the headlight switch on, if I ground either this ring here or this ring here, I should be able to make these lights come on, and they're not coming on. So the first thing I did was I verified that I had a good ground. This solid black wire is the ground wire, but I also verified that the housing right here on the steering valve is a good ground. So now I've got my ground lead on my meter hooked up to that bolt on the housing, and I can check my voltage now at this point. So if I pull the bulb out, I can back this wire off, and I can see that that's got quite a bit of corrosion on it. So that might right there might be my problem. But I'm gonna check anyways. I'll put my meter lead on here and I'll turn the switch back on, and I'm getting about 11.2 volts or so, which is a little low, but my battery is probably low because I don't think my charging system's been working. So I'm gonna shut that off, and we're gonna get something to clean up these connections. And then of course the obvious thing to check is also to check my bulbs. Now the filaments appear to be okay, but again, got quite a bit of corrosion on the connection of the bulb itself. So you can see that corrosion on there. Alright, so I cleaned up the socket and the bulb. I just used a soft brass brush and some contact cleaner. And now, when I ground this with the light switch on, the light lights. So now I'm going to do that to the rest of the bulbs and sockets. Well, so 3 out of 4 of those bulbs were burnt out. So I ended up having to get new bulbs. The bulbs were 1895s, and I ended up buying these 2 packs of Sylvania Long Life bulbs, and these things cost me like $6 or $7 a pack, and I had to buy 2 of them, so it was like $12 in tax. Not cheap. I remember when these bulbs were really cheap, and actually you can find cheaper bulbs online, but I didn't want to wait for an order to come in, and also I kind of like the fact that these are the long life ones, because you certainly don't want to have the bulbs burn out prematurely, considering how difficult it is to get to these. Well, fairly difficult. Well, maybe not that difficult. So now, with the sockets all cleaned and new bulbs in there, let's see how many of these light. So I'm going to get on the ground again here, and well, these have 2 wires going to them, so I can't really do anything about those. Well, those might light because those actually, the ground is when the switch is closed. So yeah, so like right now, I actually would have expected these 2 lights to be lit. So if I look at this wiring diagram, I could see that the 12 volt supply that makes these 2 lamps light, the panel lamps light, actually comes directly off of the light switch for the headlights, as opposed to the 12 volts that's responsible for making these 2 lights work in conjunction with the, whether it's the oil pressure switch or the generator circuit. That 12 volts actually comes from right here, comes from a contact or a post off of the ignition switch, but it's fed through a 3 amp fuse right here. And I can see the ignition switch wiring all kind of goes into the harness and disappears, and you can't really see it. But interestingly enough, way down here there is a fuse holder, a regular AGC type fuse holder for a small fuse. So I'm betting this is going to be the 3 amp fuse. Let's pull this fuse out and see if it's A, if it's good, and B, if it's blown. Oh wow, that's not a regular AGC fuse. That's going to be one of those funky little ones. Yeah, see, why can't life be easier? Because of course regular AGC fuses I have a ton of. So I checked that fuse, and the fuse is okay. It is a 3 amp fuse, so I think that is the correct fuse. And then I just happened to look down here more closely at the key switch and saw this wire, this plug hanging. And you see there's a couple of lugs right here that it could go to. And I just checked with my voltmeter, and sure enough, when I turn the key on, there's 12 volts right here. So that's where this goes, and I bet you this white wire is what feeds those lights. So it'll probably be just a matter of plugging this back on here. But I'm going to probably want to clean that connection and tighten it up, but just for the heck of it. Yep, sure enough. Well, one. Getting one of the lights now. You can see it down inside here. The other one is still not lighting. Oh, I got the second light to light. It turns out the bulb wasn't seated correctly. So now, if I turn on, well, that's right, I don't have it grounded. But if these other 2 bulbs were grounded, if the sockets were grounded in the housing and the black ground wire is hooked up, then all 4 lights will work now. So I think I'm ready to put this back together. So those of you who've been following right along may recall I was talking about how I busted this cap on the top here, and how I had contacted the seller on eBay, which was Reliable Aftermarket Parts, and explained the situation. And then I was told by somebody there that they would ship me out at no charge a replacement cap. They wanted me to send back the steering wheel for a replacement steering wheel, but I said, well, I just really need the cap. So supposedly that's what they were going to do. Well, a couple weeks went by and no cap showed up. So I didn't think much of it. And then out of the blue, like a month later, I get a notification from eBay that I've been issued a refund. And I had no idea what it was. I had to go on eBay and look, and lo and behold, the people at Reliable Aftermarket Parts, someone there decided just to issue me a full refund. So essentially, I ended up getting this steering wheel for free. I don't know why they chose to do it that way. I guess they just realized for whatever reason, they couldn't fulfill my request for a replacement cap. So now I got to try and find a cap for this, or make one, I guess. But anyways, I'll worry about that later. But I just thought that would be, you might find that interesting. Or maybe you don't. I don't know. Maybe I just wanted something to talk about.